Welcome to another episode of our Interfaiths podcast. We're really delighted today to have Joan Godoy from Radical Partners. So she is an amazing institution in herself, working to help nonprofits here in the Miami area. And so we're going to talk a little bit about her background, her life, and then talk about the work that Radical Partners does, the future of the organization and kind of the nonprofit world here, and then think about, what are some of the things that students can take away and listeners can take away from her life and sort of her experiences. So with that, I will start. And if you can just say a few words about yourself and your background. Who are you?
Few words.
Yeah.
A ver, Joan Godoy. I always liked starting by saying that I am proudly from Guatemala.
Okay.
That's where I was born and raised. And I start with that because it's a very small country in Central America that is very colorful in every single way.
Okay.
And from an early age, I was very aware of inequity. And I think that really shaped my work. So, of course, I have a long trajectory in the social impact sector in Guatemala, Costa Rica, Chile, all the way to the Netherlands, and then ended up in Miami. And today, I'm the CEO of Radical Partners, as you said, and we are a social impact accelerator. And what that means is that we are all about investing in the leaders and the organizations that are transforming their communities in whatever way. That could be poverty alleviation, that could be interfaith dialogues, that could be racial justice. And what we make sure is that these leaders are supported and that they are equipped with all the skills and resources that they need to advance their work and their impact.
Okay, so let's go back to Guatemala.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah.
What was that like?
So I started traveling from an early age.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of three. So I'm a survivor of my two older brothers. And I think there's two people that really shaped my childhood, right? One was my dad and his job, because he was an environmentalist, or he still is, always leading international organizations. So because of his job, we always had the opportunity and the requirement to travel, right?
Mhm.
Whether that
Of
was
course.
inside my country, to several rural areas, and or to other regions in Central America. So I lived in a couple of places when I was young.
Okay.
So I remember there was always people, there was always food, there was always music. But the music and the food was always diverse,
Right.
because it really depended on who we were surrounded with. There was a lot of nature, because we were climbing places, we were exploring different locations, etc. And I think something that really marked my childhood was to be the same person, but being perceived in a different way depending on where we were, right? So in some occasions, I'm pretty light-skinned, right? So in some occasions, I was the lightest one in the room, but in some occasions, I wasn't. So I kind of had to learn to define my identity, but also to be adaptable to what the circumstances told me was needed. And I think that really shaped me as a person. It really shaped my work, because I was always aware of the different types of power that I could have depending on where I was. And sometimes it was very needed to step up as a woman, for example, or as a Latina in this space. Right. But in some occasions, I really needed to step back if I was surrounded by indigenous and Mayan communities. Right. So there was always that back and forth, and the beauty of travel with its blessings and its curses. And I think that really shaped my childhood, and it made me the non-binary woman that I am in every single sense of the world.
So you said your father was one of the people that influenced you. Who was the other one?
Great. I love that you're coming back. My grandma.
Okay.
My grandma, she was very advanced for her. Not her age, but her, ¿cómo se dice? Época.
And for her time? Maybe?
Like for her time. Right. Because she was openly a feminist, and she was openly pro-human rights in an era where that was somewhat of a sensitive topic in Guatemala. So it was beautiful in the early 80s to talk to a woman who was so coquette and advanced and so smart in her readings and what she listened to. And I just remember that I really wanted to be like her.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with my wife's a friend, right? So
Yeah.
Her childhood is really defined by her grandmother
Yeah.
as well. That's in one of the remarkable things, like when you live in an extended family,
Yeah.
are you able to, have the intergenerational connection? I think
Yeah.
there's so much that you learn through that experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you're a child, you're not aware of that, and
Right.
I don't know why I got so emotional about it.
Yeah.
Because you're just there absorbing what you see, right? And I think it's as I grew up in my career that I realized how those two things really shaped who I am,
Yeah.
and the boldness that it requires
Absolutely.
to transform your communities.
Yeah, and it's not easy work either. I mean,
No.
the thing is, like, especially if you're gonna, go against social norms. I think that takes a lot of courage and discipline. I think courage, and also, you have to have strong moral character as well.
Mhm.
So you have to understand kind of what is right and what's
Yeah.
wrong, and that's hard because a lot of times people kind of just go along with whatever is popular. They don't want to, be seen as being different. So that's remarkable that your grandmother, was this really remarkable person.
Yeah.
And she instilled that in you as well. So that's great.
Yeah, she was definitely a rebel. Sometimes a little too much. But it was good to witness that.
That's amazing. Okay, great. I mean, I'm interested a little bit more even about, you were talking about kind of sometimes you were in these spaces where you had to calibrate kind of how present you were, or how much you had to step back. Talk to me a little bit about working with indigenous communities. I mean,
Mhm.
that would be very interesting to learn about what those experiences were like.
Yeah, so Guatemala, like other countries in Latin America, like Peru, Ecuador, and a few others, are up to a few years ago, they were majority indigenous,
Yeah.
right? So Guatemala, I have to look at the stats nowadays, but I would dare to say that it's at least 40% of the population that's indigenous from Mayan origin. And like many of the countries that are diverse in that way, it's a very segregated place, right? So I grew up in the city, and had access to certain things because my parents were academics.
Right.
They worked very hard, so that gave me access to certain type of education or certain type of recreational activities.
Right.
But because of my dad's job, I was always traveling to other parts of the country, right? So if you were in the city, you didn't really see much of the diversity of the country, but once you were out, you did. And the realities were just very different, right? Like we have one of the countries with the biggest illiteracy rates. And for those of you watching, I don't know if you know that Guatemala has more than 20 languages that are spoken in that very small territory. So we literally cannot communicate with each other, right? Because it is very hard to learn 20 languages. And they're so diverse, and many of them are only spoken languages, not necessarily written forms. So when I would go into those spaces, I remember I was finishing college, right? And I was volunteering for an organization. I was there passionate and empowered and ready to teach a lot of things. But the things that I've learned, or the ways that I've learned how to teach, weren't necessarily the ways in which things were going to be absorbed by the communities. Based on, I don't know, our technological possibilities or the language that we were using. So I quickly had to learn how to use more drawings and how to use more circular dialogue to get to the point, right, of talking about human rights. So instead of human rights is this, and this is the definition, and this is what the declarations say, it was more about how, like, dialogue around what is happening in your community, what are the violence moments, right, that you don't want to portray in that community, and how can we go about that, etc. So it's just a different way of living. And another thing that I would like to highlight is the respect for nature. Not only the respect, but the interconnection with nature is something that I learned to respect a lot. With a very simple act, for example, they do several Mayan ceremonies. And I remember they brought a lot of candles with different colors, right, that you need to use for the ceremony. And I quickly was looking for a scissor so I can cut them and just arrange them. And they said, no, you cannot use scissors. You have to untie the knots slowly so that you don't break the cycle, you know? So things like that would happen to me that I would feel so ignorant and in awe of different ways of living. And
Right.
of course I have so many different examples of that, but
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
No, that's amazing. I mean, I think that I'm sure that those experiences helped you also to navigate all these different cultures and these different types of people that make you so, you've been so successful here in
Yeah.
Miami. So leaving university, what was your path then eventually coming to Miami?
Okay. Well, that's a long story, but I'll try to summarize it because of my dad's influence,
Mhm.
right? I always knew that I wanted to be like him, working for an international organization somewhere in the world, doing something good. But he was more about the trees, and I was more about the people. So I decided to study psychology.
Okay.
From the social lens of psychology. So I studied psychology, and I quickly started working with small organizations in Guatemala that were supporting mostly victims from the internal conflict that we had in the 80s. So their human rights have been violated.
Yeah.
These are folks that were living with a lot of trauma and lived experiences. So that's what I did for almost 4 to 5 years. And after being in that work for so long and running a lot of support groups and basically building community leaders, right, that they could bring the knowledge and implement them in their communities, I became very frustrated with the system because I realized that we were teaching these folks how to do certain things without enough resources and or a real possibility to transform the reality of their communities based on the system that we were in. So that took me to look or to pursue for a master's. I applied to a bunch of places and I got a full ride to study in the Netherlands.
Okay.
And I studied a master in international NGOs.
Okay.
So moved from doing the work on the ground to studying more around political economy and international law and how does that apparatus work, and how can you manage organizations that are trying to transform the world. And it was also a cultural shock, right? Because all of a sudden, I was the tiniest of the group. Yeah. I was the one that came from this very small place in Guatemala, surrounded by European students that had access to other things that I didn't have before. And after that, work and love kind of took me to different places. So I worked in Costa Rica for 2 years, in Chile for a year, went back to Guatemala to work for the UN for 2 years. And then because of love, I came to Miami. Okay. And when I was like, okay, what am I going to do in Miami if I come from such a rural background and such an international organization background? And I started hearing about the concept of social entrepreneurship. So I started learning about it. Someone told me about Radical Partners. And when I looked at the website and saw that in Radical Partners, the issue wasn't what mattered, but supporting the leader and equipping the organization, I finally said like, I found my place. Okay. And that was almost 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, that's been a while. Okay.
Yeah. That was in 2017.
Okay. So, so you got to Radical Partners. What were the challenges that the organization was having when you got in?
So we were a very small organization back then. It was 3 people when I joined. And I think more than challenges back then, there was a lot of opportunity to try to model the investment that was happening in the private sector with so many startups and with so many entrepreneurial endeavors, to try to bring that to our sector, right? Which is a sector that is full of passion, full of love, full of camaraderie, but not necessarily back then the business acumen or the strategy that it takes to run a project or to run a team and to be successful at what you're doing.
That's a big issue as well. Yeah. There's not a lot of people who are very motivated and very determined and very passionate, but they don't. I think the training is a big part of it, the business part of it, and also just capital to be able to do the projects that they want to be able to do.
Look, the reality is that most of us build organizations from lived experience, right? So there's an organization that supports cancer survivors because the CEO went through that. So you have the lived experience, but you don't necessarily have had the opportunity or the desire to study all the financial aspect of things or legal aspect of things or managerial aspect of things.
So I think, what is one entrepreneur that you guys have supported that really sticks out in your mind that Radical Partners has helped to develop?
So many.
Okay. You can give a couple examples. That's fine.
Can I give you as an example?
Sure.
Let me think. I'm trying to think who's done work around interfaith work or religious work. I think Fabiola is coming to mind. She is a woman who lost her son, and she took that grief into supporting other bereaved moms, which is, we know it's a topic that's taboo, that is not that common.
Exactly.
And because she did Leadership Lab with us, right? She now is better at fundraising. She's way better at talking about herself and what she does. And most importantly, as to structure her programs, right? Because she supports women in so many different ways that she was doing whatever women needed, right? And that could be running a business, that could be giving them food, that could be taking care of their kids. So going through this program allows her to think, okay, these are the 3 to 4 things that I'm going to do for women. And this is what I need in order to do that. So identifying the amounts, what the resources that she needs, etc., to be more specific. And once she identifies what is she doing and what is she not, then she's able to collaborate with others that will be able to support women, right? So I think she's a great example. And the reason why I mention you is because I know you've been doing this interfaith work for so long at this amazing university. But through the 10 Days of Connection, I would like to think that we expose you to other people that could be your partners, right, in impact. So that to me is also capacity building and leadership, because the world needs to know about you, Iqbal. And the world could also come to you, right? So that we can foster dialogue and collaborate more.
So talk to us about 10 days. How did that come about? What is,
it's been so long as well. So to give some context to whomever's watching, because we've been talking about so many different things. I said at the beginning that Radical Partners is a social impact accelerator, right? So those 3 words are chosen with so many intentional reasons, because it's all about improving the lives of people by impacting their lives and doing it as fast as we can, because we have no time to waste. So the way we accelerate work is through 4 pillars of work. One is investing in leaders like Fab, like the one that I just mentioned. The other one is engaging locals around these causes, right? So yes, the leaders can pull, but if there's nobody else pushing and rallying around those issues, not much can happen. Number 3, we co-create solutions, just so that we can innovate in this space as well. So we do that through a lot of consulting work. And number 3, because we work with leaders, locals, and other clients of ours, we try to build as many coalitions as we can to use resources effectively and efficiently. So within all those pillars, the 10 Days of Connection comes under the community engagement pillar. And the sole purpose of the 10 Days of Connection is to allow for people to connect across lines of difference and to build those physical and emotional safe spaces for you to engage with people that you don't know, or in all honesty, that you hate. So we've hosted Democrats and Republicans for a happy hour. The Muslim community has opened up the doors of the mosque so that you can go and attend and then ask a bunch of questions. So we try to take all those things that are still taboo and talk about them and make them free to the community so that happens. So every year in May, from May 1st to May 10th, the invitation is for everybody to either attend or host a connection experience, because it could be as small as this, as a conversation in your home, right? A potluck, and have a conversation around that, all the way to hosting something public, right? And open to everybody, like we do at the Underline. So at the Underline, at the end of the 10 Days of Connection, we bring everybody for a game night or a game morning, right? So I remember a couple of years ago, there was the mayor playing Be Strong's International's game, and all of a sudden a woman was just passing by and she's like, what is happening here? Can I sit? Of course. So you had now the VP of Communications at MDC, the mayor, and a random woman on the street playing a very deep game and connecting at a human level. So that's what we do.
So say we have of course students listening as well. They're trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. What advice would you give them if they are interested in becoming a social entrepreneur? What should they study? What are some steps that they should take while they're here at university?
I think you really need to figure out if that's what you want, right now, not forever, because I don't think anything is forever. What is that next adventure for you, or what is that next stage for you? And if it's leading something and building something that you're curious about and driving something, then I would say go ahead and pursue it. But while you pursue it, you need to do research, right? So our friends at UPenn have a course, and they say that whenever you decide to endeavor in a social entrepreneurship journey, you should be very mindful about three things. One, what does the market want and need, right? So in our case is, what is that issue that you would like to solve? Let's talk about transit, for example, right? If transit is going to be that issue that you're trying to solve, you need to understand what is happening, what are the problems, who else is in the market, so that you can come and add value. And then number two is, how are you going to add value, right? What is that product that you're going to give to the world? And the third one, they precisely say, it depends on what you want as an entrepreneur. Because nonprofits or 501c3s, in the end, donations become a revenue stream, right? So you need to be very clear about what the world needs, what you're going to do, and who's willing to pay for it. It could be foundations, it could be individual donors, it could be potential clients of yours. So yes, the passion, and yes, the heart to solve the world, and what is the business strategy to make sure that whatever you're offering is going to be sustainable over time.
Absolutely. Here in Miami, I mean, what are some of the major challenges that you guys are seeing that need to be addressed?
Yeah. So I think there's some societal issues that we are passionate about. I won't say concerned. And then I'll zoom into how we think we can or should solve it in the sector. So this won't be any surprise to anybody, right? It's year 2025, and housing affordability is one of those issues. And to me, affordability doesn't necessarily have to do only with the money, but involve accessibility and quality of life. So to me, is housing and what's around you, right? Can you walk places? Can you have access to good food? So I guess it's housing and urbanism that is something that we're paying attention to. And that is very tied to anything climate, right? The amount of waste that we're generating, how the heat is increasing. So there's a full array of environmental issues that we can address, including transit, right? And how that can help. And number three, I think the beautiful use of technology is alienating us so much as a community, that I don't think we are aware of the consequences it could have later. And I'm not saying don't use technology and just focus on people, but it's the emotions and the addictions and how our brains are physically changing because of the use of technology that are against human nature. So touch, seeing each other, hugging each other, right? Like there's elements that our bodies are wired to have, to do, and to indulge in, that are a few things that are we are passionate about. So what can we do about it? Our approach is that we need to think more strategically and smartly as an ecosystem, right? So as a result of the work that we've been doing in the last 8 years, not only Radical Partners, but FIU and Miami-Dade College and all these other folks around social entrepreneurship, I personally think that now we have too much. And we have too many entrepreneurs, and we have too many organizations that are scattered all over the place. And that might not be the best approach to solve these issues. So up next, we're going to be focusing a lot on consolidation, right? And how can we share services or share spaces, start merging some of these organizations, and be passionate about the issue and not necessarily just growing our venture.
Right. Oh, that's a very important point. So, I mean, I know you're working sort of locally. What about nationally? I mean, one of the big challenges that we see in the United States is polarization. So political polarization, ideological polarization. What do you see as some possible ways to deal with that?
So the good news is that there are several organizations, especially in the United States, dedicated to foster
Right.
dialogue. Some are political, some are religious,
Right.
some are just to bring community together.
Right.
The Weavers, for example, from Aspen Institute, and there's a few other initiatives from Berkeley University, etc. So you can look them up, like Connection initiatives around the US, and you'll find beautiful free opportunities and beautiful videos that you can watch. What I see, though, is that we have that opportunity, but it's a very intellectual conversation. Yeah. So you and I are very tapped into this because there are colleagues, there are peers, and we're interested in the topic. But the ones who are more polarizing, they're not going to look this up, right? Like, how can I get closer to this group? So I truly think that there's an opportunity in leveraging food and music and parks or transportation to bring people together without being so nerdy about it, right? Sure. So if you are exposed to people who look differently from you, if you are exposed to smart and kind humans who are representative of groups that you didn't think, I think that's where the real connection happens. So we need to be a little sneaky in our strategy to make sure that we bring people together, because I like to think that the majority of us are good people. It's just that evil people are louder than us. So if the majority of us get louder and get more strategic and make kindness and niceness contagious, we will win. And that requires a lot of work and a lot of courage for you to be nice and kind, even when we are angry and disappointed at certain people.
Getting back again to Guatemala, how did people work through the reconciliation process after the violence?
How are they still working through it? So there was a signature, or there was a peace accord, right, in the 90s. So that was kind of like the official moment where the military and the guerrillas came to sign peace. But I would say it took 20, 30 years for that to become somewhat of a reality. But I think we're still dealing with the consequences of fear and silence of people that either portrayed war crimes or were affected by war crimes. And because of globalization in every single aspect, right, and the access to technology and people moving from one city to the other, I think we're starting to finally see that there's a more diverse society. I don't think we have succeeded at really being integrated as society, right? You still see what careers or what professional endeavors belong to certain groups and what others do not. And there's still a lot of stereotypes that are lived. The progress is that maybe people don't say them that much, right? Like there's not a lot of racial slurs or verbal discrimination anymore, because it's not good to do that. But I think we still need to do some work around what's here and what your real belief is, so that we can elect more indigenous groups, so that we can, in my case, respect and admire the military a little bit more. And that only happens with real dialogue and with time.
So I think we're coming towards the end of our time. What is a life lesson that you've learned that you would like to share with students?
There is a common saying that is not mine, that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I think the world needs you to be more curious and to learn more before you do. So for those who are doers, I would say do a little bit more listening. And for those of you who spend too much time listening and reflecting, don't be afraid of doing. So I guess the lesson is the power is precisely in that interaction of me listening to you, you listening to me, and what we build together. I think it's this bridge that we need, and I hope you all get to be bridge builders.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joanne. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Iqbal.
Yeah, this is great. I'm glad we were able to do this.